Samson, first, I want to knock something on its head, and I'll say it again and again. Economic prosperity is not about numbers. It's about the value of the CD in your pocket. Full stop. And politicians should stop lying to us about debt to GDP ratio. It's not about how much your debt to GDP ratio is. It's how much of your income you are used to pay that debt. Don't compare yourself to Japan, which has over 200% debt to GDP ratio. The amount they pay for their debt is less than 20%. What are we talking about? Anyway, with regards to the tax, first, the tax is a red herring. And I like to shift a little bit tax and agriculture because, of course, when you give tax reliefs, you are supposed to help to revive an economy. Apart from the fact that planting for food and jobs have failed, it has failed. I mean, there are people in this country that are going hungry. Food inflation is gone through the roof. Instead of measuring outcomes, we talk about how many farmers have been helped, how many people have received implements. We don't measure outcomes. We're still importing tons and tons of broilers. And we're exporting tons and tons of eggs and rice.
The poultry industry you're talking about is literally dead in this country.
Yeah,
we have engaged those in that industry, and we don't import. We don't produce even up to 2% of what we consume.
So I'll come to that. And what we do. But if you look in the budget, they've also put in some scheme to do some poultry outgrower scheme and so forth. It's going to fail like the ones that failed in 2014, 2016, 2017. It will fail. And it's just job for the boys and opportunity for politicians to take money out. And I feel cheated. I feel cheated. When you think about the poultry industry, I mean, it's not about the birds. It's about the efficiency of all the people that support that industry. It's about the price of feed. What are we doing about maize? Let's talk about those things. Where's the integration with Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Transport? Where's the integration with FDA? There are issues to do with dumping. Has the Ministry of Food and Agriculture talked to the Ministry of Trade? What have they done about it? So I feel cheated. It's immoral. Money is being taken out of my pocket.
I don't intend to interrupt you, but when you talk about the poultry industry, with my engagement with those of them who are in there, they are presidents and leaders on this show, and realizing, for example, how that industry is completely dying out, they, at a point, they had solace in the 1 egg per day for the school child. And then suddenly, somebody felt that a contract should be given to some person to go and bring something prepared in China with school feeding on it. And that completely took away their jobs.
Samson, and if you think about the tons and tons and tons of money we borrow from agriculture, it's sad that we're where we are. The issue is not about the taxes. The issue is about a lack of vision. The issue is not about money. It's about policy. The issue is lack of integration. The issue is lack of strong leadership to say no. Those are the issues. So those things you talk about, taxes, those things with the politicians, they are just red herrings. I mean, so I can bring in a hatchery for tax-free. Well, fair enough. But how about all the other things that go into it? How about all that? Let's think short, medium, long term. Let's have policies and plans that make sense. We lack vision. We lack ability to plan. It's not about money. We lack strong leadership. That's the issue. And that's what we need to deal with. But if you ask me whether the taxes are beneficial, of course, I mean, what the tax is going to do? I mean, interest rates are over 40%. When the government takes money out of my pocket, all it uses it to do to fund its pet projects and give its employees more money. Why didn't it give the money back to me? Why didn't the government use that to reduce its borrowing so I can reduce interest rates? Then I can see an effect in my pocket. But to say that, you've given me some tax relief, I mean, what do I do with it?
But business has also been complaining that if there was some sort of tax holidays or reliefs, it will help to grow the economy. And this has been done. Zero tax rate on VAT on locally manufactured African print for 2 more years. Zero rate VAT on locally produced sanitary parts. Import duty waivers for raw materials for local manufacturing of sanitary parts. Extension of zero rate of VAT on locally assembled vehicles for 2 more years. Waive import duties on imports of electric vehicles for public transportation for 8 years. Government to engage GMA on waivers for vehicle importation to ease doctors' transportation burden upon passage of the Exemptions Act. Grant exemptions on the importation of agricultural machinery, equipment and input and medical consumables, raw materials for the pharmaceutical industry. And finally, waive import duties on semi-knocked down and completely knocked down electric vehicles imported by registered EV assembly companies in Ghana for a period of 8 years.
Let me take a couple. So you talk about tax exemption for electric vehicles. I mean, how many people work in that industry anyway? I mean, this is a tax for friends. Really, I mean, what are you trying to achieve? Of course, something like a tax relief on locally made wax springs and sanitary parts is good. But at the factories here, how long will it take for the factories to set up? In any case, it's not that 2 or 3 or 4% tax relief that you're giving that will incentivize the private sector to engage and invest. It's about all the other things. I mean, this for me, there's so much showboating. There's too much showboating, and you know we're sort of shadow boxing. We're in the ring, but nobody's throwing a punch. We can't continue like this. There's a lack of vision, a lack of planning. I mean, the businesses are suffering. People are laying off staff. Don't we see that? Don't you realize Ghanaians are going hungry every day? What policies are we doing that will impact their lives? If the government has money, has saved some money, it shouldn't be to YE, go for the boys, it shouldn't be the poultry. The government should facilitate. The government does not execute. And that is our problem. So for me, the taxes, they are nice, but really, the impact is negligible.
How about the taxes that have also been introduced? And we're asking the question, how will the reliefs and the new taxes or the increases or review upwards of the taxes lead us to the destination, as in economic recovery? Government is to review and expand the environmental excise duty to cover plastic packaging and industrial and vehicle emissions. Government is to review the Tax Duty Act, and bans subject to ad valorem taxes will be expanded while the specific rates will be reviewed upwards. The implementation of the communication service tax is being carried out in phases. The first phase, currently under implementation, covers 14 entities, including pay-per-view television stations, and finally, engagement with stakeholders for implementation of the second phase has begun, and their onboarding will be carried out in 2024.
Samson, they say, if you can't convince them, what do? Confuse them. Don't be confused. And the impact is negligible. Ask anybody. If you can't convince them, confuse them. I mean, guys, come on. Let's be real. I mean, let's be real. How does the trader in Abosoka, how does he benefit? He's lost all his capital over the last 2 years. How does he benefit? He can't borrow to save his life. He has no chance of being able to raise more money. How does my friend, who has had to take his kids out of school because of DDEP, how does he benefit? Those taxes, you can ask those that have the figures, the effect is negligible. That is of no sure way to revive this economy. If you want to revive this economy, focus on driving the interest rates down. Focus on that. If there's any money, focus on reducing your borrowing. Then you can start to have some hope that there will be a revival. But this is showboating. I mean, if you can't convince them, confuse them. You know, I mean, that's what I say to that.
Finally, before you take leave of us, I'm interested in finding out, You've heard, for example, John Jinapo, the NDC, say that a total of 5.5 billion in tax exemptions is being offered to cover some 47 crony companies. I know generally there's been a complaint about how our government just give tax exemptions. What do you say about that? We will ask them to establish the truth in this. But what do you say about that?
Okay, I have no way of confirming what she said. But this issue of tax exemption to favor those who are politically connected and their associates is not a new one. So it needs to be looked into. This issue of tax exemptions to favor the politically connected people, those that benefit from the state, associated with the state, and their cronies, it's not a new one. And people will tell you, your economists will tell you, they'll probably lose as much through tax waivers and exemption as is more that we are seeking from the IMF. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom. And let's deal with the issues. We're just going around in circles and circles and throwing figures about. Figures doesn't mean anything. It's the value of the cedi in my pocket.